Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something really cool. We're going to take some mind-bending, highly theoretical physics papers by Dr. Ahmed Rehan and translate them into a totally intuitive visual journey. We're talking about the hidden geometry of the universe here, so get ready, because we're about to challenge some of the most basic things you probably think you know about reality.
All right, let's just jump right in by questioning a foundational truth of classical physics that pretty much all of us take for granted. Does light really travel in a straight line? I mean, if you point a laser right across a vacuum, it goes in a perfectly straight line, right? That's what classical and relativistic physics have been telling us for over 100 years. But what if that straight line is actually just a massive illusion of scale?
Section 1. Rethinking classical physics. To even begin to understand why we're questioning this, we really need to look at the accumulating anomalies popping up in high-precision optics, and the frankly weird behavior of quantum fields at tiny scales. These persistent little deviations are literally forcing physicists to rethink the underlying geometry of reality itself.
So look at it this way. The classical view from heavyweights like Maxwell and Einstein gives us this continuous spacetime, a smooth, passive vacuum where light just shoots in straight, transverse lines. But Dr. Rehan's model, it proposes something totally wild. A discrete cubic lattice where light actually moves in helical spirals and where the environment itself actively shapes those electromagnetic fields.
Section 2. Spacetime as a cubic lattice. Let's really zoom in here. We need to shift our perspective down to the microscopic structure of space itself. Seriously, just forget that classic smooth rubber sheet analogy for a second.
In Dr. Rehan's theoretical framework, space and time don't form a smooth continuum at all. Instead, they're discretized. They're broken down into these tiny, fundamental cubic cells. Think of reality as being built out of microscopic 3D pixels. The space-time cube is the minimal invariant unit of reality. Its spatial edges are defined by a fundamental length, maybe something like the Planck length, and its temporal edge is simply the time it takes light to cross that exact length. Light absolutely has to navigate this specific grid.
Section 3. Light travels in spirals. Okay, this leads us to what is absolutely the most fascinating part of the theory. What does a photon actually do when it moves through these tiny discrete cubes? Well, it turns out it doesn't just jump straight from one face to another.
Because light always takes the most efficient path, the geodesic, it actually travels along the space diagonals, the internal hypotenuses of these stacked cubes. And because it's constantly threading through these 3D diagonals, its actual filamentous speed along this spiral path is this mind-bending number, the square root of 3 times the speed of light. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, you can't go faster than light. But this actually doesn't violate relativity. No information is traveling superluminally in a straight line. The overall linear forward propagation stays exactly at c.
To make this super intuitive, just imagine an elevator and a spiral staircase wrapped completely around it. If you walk up that spiral staircase, your linear upward progress, like the elevator itself, is happening at speed c. But your physical footsteps, they're covering a much longer curved distance along those stairs. That longer distance, covered in the exact same amount of time, means your footsteps are actually moving at the square root of 3 times c. All that extra speed is entirely internal to the helical path.
Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that these hidden spirals aren't just some clever mathematical trick to make a grid work on paper. They actually offer incredibly natural explanations for deep quantum mysteries. Take wave-particle duality. It suddenly makes perfect sense because the spiral path averages out to look exactly like a wave over many cycles, but then it delivers its quantized energy to a specific lattice point, hitting like a particle. Polarization, that's just the orientation of the helix. Even entanglement could potentially be explained by correlated helical phases. Plus, aesthetically, it echoes the helical patterns we see literally everywhere in nature, from DNA all the way up to the sweeping arms of galaxies.
Section 4. The active electromagnetic environment. So let's take this geometric, structural perspective and apply it to classical electromagnetism and Maxwell's equations. Because if space really is this physical, structured lattice, how does it actually interact with the fields passing through it?
Well, before we look at Dr. Rehan's modified equations, we absolutely have to understand environmental permittivity. We usually think of the vacuum of space as totally empty, right? Just a constant permittivity of free space. But in this reality, the medium that light travels through, its environment, actively resists electric fields by polarizing and storing up electric energy.
The environment is deeply, actively involved here.
When you increase that environmental permittivity, it doesn't just sluggishly slow the wave down, it actively weakens the generated electric field because the medium itself is actually soaking up that energy. And on the flip side, because of how displacement current works, this higher permittivity actually amplifies the generation of the magnetic field. Basically, the environment is dictating the balance of power between electricity and magnetism.
To put it simply, and this is a great way to think about it, the environment is not passive, but actively participates in the dance between the electric and magnetic fields. This captures the whole conceptual shift perfectly. It changes our understanding of the vacuum, or really any medium, from an empty, boring stage into a dynamic, active participant in how electromagnetic waves propagate. The medium is literally dancing with the fields. To capture this mathematically, Dr. Rehan proposes this really beautiful, symmetry-inspired modification. See, in the standard Faraday's law, the equations mostly stay unchanged in different media, and they rely entirely on secondary constitutive relations to sort of balance out the math. But in his modified version, the equation explicitly weights the electric field by the local permittivity right there in the primary equation itself. And this perfectly mirrors how Ampere's law handles displacement current. It creates this much more perfect symmetry between electricity and magnetism, and explicitly honors the role of the environment.
Section 5. A new geometric reality. Finally, let's zoom back out for a second. It's one thing to have elegant math and beautiful models of cubic lattices and spirals, right? But what does this mean for us? How can these microscopic geometric theories actually be tested out here in our macroscopic world?
Well, this framework actually offers some incredibly tangible, real-world avenues for discovery. For instance, we could use high-precision interferometers to search for minute helical phase signatures over massive distances. Or we could point our telescopes at rapidly rotating pulsars to see if their light exhibits any spiral modulation. We might even be able to observe lattice-scale deviations in the extreme gravity well near a black hole. And on the practical side, by truly understanding how permittivity alters that electric-magnetic balance, we could engineer entirely new, tunable metamaterials for advanced energy systems and optics. This is real, testable stuff.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. Every single day, we experience light as a continuous beam, and we experience space as this smooth, open void. But if this framework holds true, that smoothness is nothing more than an emergent illusion, and it's hiding an intricate, pixelated architecture of spiraling energy. It really makes you wonder what other continuous, supposedly smooth aspects of our everyday universe are actually hiding a deeply structured geometric reality. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating perspective with us today.